everyone, Miss Carrie here from Miss Carrie's Creations. I was invited to be a guest designer throughout the summer on the Coffee Loving Cardmakers Blog, and it's been so much fun sharing projects with you. With Father's Day right around the corner, I decided that I would share a card that you can make and fill with treats and gift cards. To create this card, I'm going to be using a few of my favorite items from Honeybee Stamps. One is the Treat Yourself Stamp and Die set, which has some great coffee images and sentiments. The other is the Great Outdoors Pattern Paper Pad, which is a beautifully made 6x6 stack that's going to be perfect for a Father's Day project. I also have a card background and a border strip, which I've cut from craft paper using my Cricut machine. I created this SVG design for you to use, and I'll post information about that on my website later today. This is going to be a simple card that you can make for any occasion. Father's Day in the States is celebrated in June, so I thought this would be a perfect project for the blog today. I'm going to start by folding the card base. My Cricut Maker added the score lines to this for me, and it makes it really easy to fold. I chose to use craft paper to give this card a more masculine feel, but you can cut this from any color that you like. As I fold on the score lines, I am using a bone folder to burnish them so that they are nice and crisp. This card is going to have 4 pockets on the inside that are designed to hold a gift card, but you can fill those pockets with other items too. On the sides of this template, I added 2 little tabs. These are designed to seal the pockets closed on the edges of the card. I'm going to be adding some score tape to these tabs so that they are nice and secure. You could also use liquid adhesive. I do recommend that you use a strong adhesive because you would hate for those pockets to fall apart when you start filling them. I'm going to fold up the lower portion of this card and fold those tabs to the inside, then press down to make sure that they are stuck tight. Make sure that the sides are lined up when you are doing this so that you keep those edges nice and straight. To create a slimline card shape, we're going to fold along all of those score lines. The first flap on the left side is going to fold towards the right. You're going to flip the card over, then fold the next flap towards the left. Flip it over again and fold it towards the right, and now we have a little slimline with pockets inside. The border piece that I cut is going to be used to create a belly band on the card because it is going to be a bit thick once we start adding items to the pockets. Now you can leave this card as an accordion file, which is what I'm planning to do. But if you want it to open more like a card, you could add some adhesive in this area here and seal that shut. Doing that would create a design that opens more like a card. But like I said, I'm leaving mine as the accordion file shape, and then I'll just use the belly band to hold it closed. I'm going to start adding some paper to the inside of this card. The pockets measure about 2 3/4 by 2 1/2. So I've cut some of the outdoor patterns a little bit smaller than that. I'm going to adhere each of these to the front of the pockets. You could add all sorts of decorations to these, like some borders or silly saying stickers or dad jokes or even some photos. For the outside of the card, I'm going to keep it simple. The front measures 2 3/4 by 6, so those 6x6 papers in your collection are going to work perfectly for this project. I'm going to add some vintage photo ink around the edges of this paper just to give it a more distressed masculine look and help it blend into the craft background. I'm also going to be adding some stamped images using a coffee ring-like stamp. This is just going to be stamped randomly and off the edge of the paper. I'm also going to give this a little bit of splatter. So I've added some ink to my glass board here, and I've thinned it down with some water so that I can create those splatter patterns. I love adding splatters to my cards, but I always struggle adding them to my pages. The images I'm going to use on this card are the to-go cup, a circle image, and a heart from the stamp set. I'm going to be shading these with watered down ink, so I've chosen a black ink that doesn't smudge or run when water is applied. This ink has become my favorite go-to ink. I keep telling myself that I need to buy the full-size ink pad, but I haven't done that yet. I'm going to use the Treat Yourself sentiment for this card because it's perfect for a card that's going to be filled with gift cards. I will be heat embossing this onto some black cardstock, so I'm going to make sure that it is prepped with an anti-static powder before I stamp the image. If you don't have one of these tools, you need to grab one. I love how I don't end up with powder all over my hands, and there's hardly any residue on black cardstock. I am using Versamark ink to stamp my sentiment. This works great for sentiments and detailed images. For larger images, I prefer to use an embossing dauber. Once the image is stamped, I can pour the powder over the image. I like to use fine embossing powder for my sentiments, and I usually pour it over a bowl or glitter tray or a piece of paper so that the excess powder has a place to go. I'm just going to tap off the excess powder, and then I'll return what's left back into the bottle. To create the raised image, you will need a heat tool. I like to hold my paper with tweezers because the heat tool does get pretty warm. As it starts to warm the embossing powder, you will see it start to get shiny. Continue to move that heat tool until all the powder is melted. You don't want to overheat the powder or the plastic bits will start to flatten and your image won't look as crisp. Now that the images are stamped, I'm going to cut these out using the metal dies, and then I'll add a little bit of shading to the coffee cup. Today, I'm going to be using re-inkers to shade these images. These are dye-based, so they will mix well with water. Re-inkers do not work like watercolors. The pigments tend to soak in quickly, and some of the inks do change color and break down as you add water. You're going to want to experiment with your re-inkers before you use them on your project. The inks I'm using do break down towards the edges, and I've noticed that they change to blues or purples or yellows, but I am going to use that to my advantage. I have gone ahead and added some gray to the edges of the cup, leaving that center white, and then I'll add some ink to the heart. Now you're going to see that the ink bleeding off the edges does create a new color, and I do like that look on this design. You can see what I mean on the heart. As it's fading out, the red is turning to yellow on the sides. You do need to play with your re-inkers a bit and see if they are true to color or if they're going to change as they fade and dry. It's a great look on some projects, but it might not work for others. Now you can see that I'm not being super precise with my coloring. This is more of a free-form shading with splotches of color here and there. The colors soak into your watercolor paper and they don't really blend or meld together like watercolor pigments, which doesn't really allow you to add shadows or details with layers of ink. These inks do allow me to create a nice messy look with very little details, which is what I want to do on this image. After I've added the coloring, I'm going to splatter this image with some ink to match the look of the card, and then I'm going to set these aside to dry. While the images were drying, I created some tags for my pockets. I did this off camera using this layered tag die set. These tags fit perfectly into the pockets and can be used to hold the gift cards or used for writing little notes. You could also make your tags from some of your extra pocket cards. Those ones that have journaling lines and icons would be great for this project. Let's go ahead and finish the front of the card and add that little belly band. So I've grabbed some of the leftover paper bits from this project and I adhered them together with a bit of stitching. I love that it adds texture to my projects. I'm going to attach this about 1/3 of the way up, and then I'll layer the coffee cup image over the top using some foam tape. Since this is a Father's Day card, I am going to add a little circle on the coffee cup with a heart. That little pop of red is a sweet addition to the design. The sentiment I created says, "Treat yourself," and it's going to be layered over the cup on the right side using a little bit of foam tape. This stands out beautifully on the front of the card. Like I said earlier, if you want this to open more like a card, you can add some adhesive on the back and close it shut. But once you start adding items to the pocket, it's probably not going to stay shut. So that belly band is going to help with that. I have made this border cut a little longer than needed so that it would fit a few different thicknesses. The card thickness is going to differ depending on what you add to your pockets. I'm just going to wrap this around so I can determine where I need to trim it. Then I'm going to use some score tape to attach the ends together. Again, you do want a stronger adhesive here because you want that belly band to be nice and secure and hold that card closed. You would hate for it to pop open before the recipient gets it. So here is that completed card we created today. You can see here that I did add some ribbon along the belly band just to give it a little bit of texture, and I added a couple of acrylic dots here at the top. This card has a great masculine feel with the blues and grays and green pattern papers, and that pop of red works perfectly. It is a bit thicker than your typical Slimline card, but that's because you're going to fill it with all sorts of Father's Day goodies. Once the recipient removes the belly band, they're going to be able to see all of the tags and cards and sentiments inside. Your kids could write some notes, draw a picture, or add a gift card to a place they want to go with Dad. This makes such a fun little Father's Day gift that you could give. The design for today's Coffee Loving Cardmakers blog project can be made for any occasion. You can give this to a graduate, a newly wedded couple, or as a holiday or birthday gift. I encourage you to get creative with this project and share it with me. I always love seeing what you create. If you enjoy pinning images on inspiration boards, I will be posting photos of this card on my website later today. On my website, there will also be a link to the SVG file. I have put links to those websites in the description below. Make sure you stop by that Coffee Loving Cardmakers blog and check out some more coffee crafts that you can make. I hope that you have a wonderful week, and I can't wait to see what you create.